Candyology Radio, where we talk about love, sex, and relationships. Again, hello, my name is Candy J. Thank you for watching. I am a certified clinical sexologist and relationship coach through the Dr. Rachel Institute and the American Colleges of Sexologists. I specialize in putting the oohs and the ahs back into your relationship, and I do this by helping you foster better communication through one-on-ones, group counseling, seminars. I specialize in dating after divorce, premarital counseling. There's a slew of things. But today, I am talking to Miss Sarah Tolbert. She is a marriage boot camp coach and director. And so I am so excited to have her in the building. Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
What's going on, girl? Look at your beautiful face.
You're so sweet. I love you.
I love you too. You know, you've been my sis. We've been
Yes,
So tell the people a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is so fun. I just adore you, and I'm so thankful for you having me here. So, yeah. So I am a certified belief therapist. I am a certified life coach. I am a premarital educator registered with the state of Texas. And as Candy mentioned, I am also a director at the Marriage and Life Enrichment Boot Camp. I'm also a mother, and I am a wife. I have four beautiful daughters, a 24-year-old stepdaughter from my first marriage, and then my 15-year-old, 9-year-old, and 6-year-old. So we have a full house.
Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
That sounds like a full house. But how long have you been married?
Oh my gosh. Okay, 8 years. Oh, I hope my husband's not listening. Yeah, 8 years.
8 years? That's a long time.
Yeah.
So sorry, she was asking me a question. I can't, you
just
happen.
you gotta
But so 8 years and you said you have 3 kids.
Yes.
Are those kids?
This is complicated. Yeah, this is complicated. Which is actually what led me into what we're going to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yes, so I was married previously, and he had a daughter already, and then he and I had a daughter. So my oldest is 15, and then after my divorce, I met someone else, and very quickly became pregnant. That's a whole other story.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a daughter outside of wedlock, and then I found my husband now after my healing journey. I finally found
Your person.
mate, my person. Yes, my lobster, as they say in Friends.
You're a lobster. Wait, no, that makes me think of Friends. That's my favorite, my favorite show ever.
Yes, me too.
And that episode,
Yes.
she's your lobster. Do the claws again.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, they're having a reunion.
I know. I'm excited.
I think it's May
Thursday.
27th.
It's Thursday. Yes.
I'm so excited.
Oh my.
So listen, people, don't call me. Don't talk to me on May 27th.
That's right. That's
I think
right.
it's at 7 or 8.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
I think it is.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
I know.
If you
I'm
know me
so excited.
personally, you know Friends
Yes.
is my thing.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus, hallelujah. Okay,
That's why we're sisters. Like, yes.
So you mentioned a few things.
Mhm.
So let's go back. Let's go back.
Okay.
Because you said you've been married.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
ma'am. Yes,
What happened, Sarah?
Oh gosh. Okay, so
How did you
I
meet
can
him?
think back that far.
Mhm.
Okay, so we met at work. I went to work for a contractor, and so I met him there at that place of business. I had done a lot of other things before that, and I was very young, so 19, 20 when I started working there. So then we kind of got together a couple years later. But yeah, it was one of those things where, we were both really young. I mean, he was 8 years older than me, but still both very, very young. And so we were partiers, and we liked to go have fun, and we just kind of ended up together.
So wait, you were 19, 20, he was 27, 28? Is that okay? All
Yeah.
right, continue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing the math.
I've always been that way, though. My husband's 10 years older than me. I don't understand, but it doesn't matter, I guess.
Love is love.
So
right?
it is. That's right. That's right. It used to drive my mom crazy, though. She's like, "Can you please date someone your age?"
No.
I'm like, "I don't know how
Why?
to do that."
Why would I do that for you?
Yeah, I just don't know how to do that. So sorry. But yeah, my poor mom. I used to stress her out. So anyway, yeah. So we just started dating, and we dated for a long, long time. He moved in with me. I bought my first house when I was 21 years old, and so not long after that, he moved in. His daughter, I'm trying to think, she was probably 5 or 6 at that point. So I've been in her life since she was about 2. So, and she's 24 now. So yeah, so that's a long journey with her, but we're still super close. But yeah, so then a few years later, he and I got married, and we had a baby shortly after that. I guess, I don't know, maybe a couple of years after that. But then everything kind of just went crumbling down not long after we got married, and I decided that it was probably time to end it.
You said crumbling down. What type of issues did you guys have?
So I think part of it was I started growing, and remember, I was like 20 something, super early 20s, and I was kind of discovering who I was. I dropped out of college, it was kind of that point where I'm like, I'm tired of partying. I don't want to do this anymore.
Absolutely.
I want to have a family, and I want to, do things and travel. But he still was kind of in that world because what he did for work, he had to entertain all the time.
Right.
So he's at the bar, he's, traveling or whatever. And I just didn't want that life anymore. And so then, my depression kicked in because I've battled that since I was a kid. And that kind of kicked in, and things just started getting worse and worse and worse. And
Right.
I didn't know how to manage that depression because it had never been diagnosed. So I wasn't sure, is this what it is or
That's
what?
a whole nother show.
It really is. It really is, yeah. And so we just really started drifting apart, and he was hanging out with people that I didn't want to hang out with, and we're on 2 different playing fields. And
Absolutely.
I thought, you know what? I want my daughter to have a different life than this. I don't want her to be wondering, are mom and dad okay? Or they, because we did everything separate. We didn't do anything together anymore. We were just having 2 different lives. And it wasn't healthy for either one of us.
Absolutely not.
And so it was just time, and we saw a counselor, and I just remember, I didn't think she understood. And so I kind of felt like she was taking his sides on things. And so finally, after we both quit seeing her as a couple, I went to see her by myself, and she kind of helped me realize, Sarah, you've got some things you need to work on.
Right.
And I was like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's his fault. He caused all this. And she's like, no, I'm going to tell you some things. And I was mad. I'm like, fine, I'm not going to see you anymore. So I didn't see her anymore.
Pause.
Yes.
Right there. Pause right there. That is why so many people stop going to counselors and coaching, because they call them out on their shit.
True.
They call them out on their shit, and you don't want to hear it. And
that's right.
And that's why you don't change, because we call you out on your stuff. And it's all to better you. Okay, keep going.
Yes. No, yeah. What she said. Totally. Yes. Yeah. And so I'm like, you know what? I don't want to come back here anymore. And so, yeah, I didn't deal with my stuff. And so I thought, okay, fine, I'm just going to do what I need to do. And she's confirmed, some things that I knew, this is unhealthy, this is toxic, you probably should go. But I wasn't ready to hear all that. And I was like, well, when I go, I'm going to go on my terms, and because I want this and because I want that, and I'm going to make sure my daughter's whatever. And so I just planned it. I planned it out. It was terrifying because, again, I'm still in my 20s, and I'm planning out my escape. And I'm like, I don't know how to tell him. And so that was a very, very challenging time in my life. It was awful.
And you said escape. He wasn't abusive.
No.
Right? Okay. I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Because know a lot of people, when they use that word.
Yeah. And honestly, I guess abuse can be
verbal,
many
physical,
forms.
Emotional, yeah.
And I would say that we probably both were a little bit verbally, emotionally abusive to each other too, because we were so toxic. So it's not who we were, but that's what was coming out. And so I think that's how we knew, okay, this this has to end because this is not healthy for anybody. And I certainly didn't want my daughter seeing that, thinking that that's how we take care of things or how we communicate. And so, so no, it wasn't anything like physical abuse or anything like that. But I planned my escape, like to get out, and we had this house, like we had so many things that I had to figure out what to do, but I wasn't sure how to tell him because it was just so toxic and we never saw each other. And so finally I was like, okay, well, he's about to go out of town, so maybe I'll just do this when he's out of town. Yeah. Well, I told him right before he left, but I was like, look, I know you probably don't want to be here when I'm moving out. I know this is probably going to be no surprise to you, but I found a rental house. I'm going to be moving. Haley and I are moving while you're gone on your trip.
Wait a minute, Sarah. Wasn't this your house, though?
Yes. It was, no. This was our house. We had built a house together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Girl,
no,
wait a minute.
No. We sold that house.
Okay.
I'm telling you, there's a lot. I can't believe we only have an hour because, I mean, this might take a while. No, that house we sold, and then we bought and built a house together.
Okay.
So
Okay,
right before we got married.
Girl, like, get out right now.
No. It wasn't like that. No, I was like, you know what? You stay here. I want to be in Frisco anyway. I don't want to be here anymore. I wanted Haley to go to school in Frisco schools because I heard they were the best. So that's what I did. I just said, this is what's happening. This is when it's happening. And this is what I'm taking with me. And sorry.
You moved out while he was gone.
And I moved out while he was gone.
No
and that was
issues,
actually the best, no issues. That was the best decision. Of course, he was like, no, I don't want this. And I'm like, well, I don't either, but I think this is necessary.
Absolutely.
And so, it worked out great. It was a smooth transition. Of course, it was devastating anyway. And I mean, it's like a death, divorce is like a death. So,
oh man, that's something that I say all of the time. Because people don't realize, it's a soul tie. You know, you've become one with this person, and when you're separating from yourself as well.
Yes.
And you come out a totally different person when you remove yourself from that person. That's why, it's always saying that if you marry once, try to marry only once.
Right. That's so true. It's true.
And it's hard. I mean, we make mistakes, of course. Everybody makes mistakes. Yeah. But one of my clients was like, why do I feel like I'm mourning right now? And I said,
because you are.
You are. Maybe you are. Yeah. And she's like, she's funny. She said, so should I have a funeral? And I said, it's called a divorce party, boo.
That's right. That's right. Mine happened to be my 30th birthday also.
Hello. Ooh. Wait a minute. What did you do?
I had a party, an Elvis party.
Oh, yeah. Oh, so everybody had a hunk of
I love Elvis. I'm such an Elvis junkie. I can't help it. Yeah. But he died the day I was born, so I think maybe there's a little transition going on there. So, So, I had a party, and I was like, I am not celebrating. And then I'm like, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. I'm going to grieve, and I'm going to celebrate at the same time. And who says I can't?
You can.
So that's what I did.
So wait. Yeah. So then we got from that marriage, right? And then you said you got into another relationship, right?
Yeah. So I got into several relationships after that. Yeah. Did you?
Yeah, because that made me want to ask a question. So did you ever? And of course, this is no judgment zone. Did you ever have a hoe phase, like before or after you got married?
I think others would see it that way, but in my mind, no.
It was just dating around.
Matter of fact, I think people even said that to me, like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "But I found this guy, and he's amazing, and he's, and then I didn't date him anymore, and then I dated this guy."
Right.
And but during all of that is when I also found my faith.
Right.
And so that changed everything. So I think after that, I was like, you know what? There's something else here. Like, I've got to get my healing, because otherwise I'm just going to keep attracting these bozos that are doing nothing for me and that I don't actually want. I want to be married. That's when I realized I don't want this life. I want to be married. I want to have a family. And again, that's where my faith came in, and I met Jesus, and like things changed for me drastically. And I was like, you know what? I don't want this life. And so when I would have a boyfriend, I would express, by the way, this is where I'm at now. Like I have this relationship here, so ours is going to be limited. Meaning you're not going to get sex.
And then that would weed out some people, right?
It did. It really did. It did. But I thought, people are going to judge me for that too. But
it doesn't matter.
At that point, I didn't care because I was in my healing journey. So for me, it was like, take it or leave it. This is who I am. And that's how I knew that when I met my husband, he was the right one too.
But rewind.
Yes. We do have to rewind.
You said you had this relationship,
I did,
though.
yeah. So that relationship was somebody that I met in Florida, and he.
What you doing in Florida, girl?
Well,
that's my home state.
I love Florida,
but
I had Haley too, so I couldn't leave her. Otherwise, I probably would have left.
What part? What part would you have gone to?
I'm trying to think where he was. I don't even know the name of the town. It's near Lake Pan. But I don't know, like outside of that. But yeah, so he was what I thought was my person at the time. I know different now.
Of course.
but like that was something that I was like, man, I really could see a life with this guy. Well, then things just didn't work out because he never came here. I was always traveling there, and I'm like, look, I have this life here. I have my daughter here. I can't ever leave this. So if we're not gonna be something, or you're not going to come here, then we really need to end this. And that was devastating. So I got the divorce. Now I've got this relationship that I thought was it. Done.
Wait, this is not the one that you had a kid
This
with,
isn't the one.
Oh, man.
No. So all this devastation, at some point I was like, well, screw it. I'm just done. I'm just going to go and have fun. What am I doing? If nobody wants to be with me, like nobody wants to be there and be that person that I so desperately want in my life, then what am I doing? So I just started dating all these different goofy guys. Yeah.
Is goofy the word, Sarah?
No, it's I just can't find the word. So that's what we're going to go with. Yeah, I was a mess. And then I dated this other guy that I thought, he's pretty fun. He's normal. He's got a motorcycle. Like, that's something I'm totally into. And so we dated for like maybe a month. We were friends first, and then we got really serious and decided, okay, we'll be exclusive and we'll start dating. And like 2 months later, I'm pregnant. I'm like, oh my gosh, I barely know this guy. I don't know what is happening. I know this is not something I want to be in. We were toxic for each other as well. And so now I'm like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. And I think I just destroyed my life.
Oh my God.
Because I don't know what I'm going to do now.
Right.
And I wasn't a Christian at that point. And so the enemy crept in, my depression crept in. Like I got really to a low point. I was suicidal. That's part of my story too. I don't really know if we have time to talk about that, but
girl, let's talk about it.
But yeah, I got to such a low point, and I'm like, I know this is not okay. I remember going to the doctor too, and I was like, I think I'm pregnant, and I clearly, visibly was not happy about this, and I was scared to death. And they're like, oh, you are, congratulations, here's a bunch of vitamins. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go home and kill myself now. And I mean, I wasn't there at that point yet, but I'm like, wow, they really don't get it. I felt like nobody got it. Nobody understood what I was going through. I felt completely isolated, completely alone. I'm like, I can't tell my family. They may already think I'm a screw up because, I lost this relationship, then I lost this relationship, and I'm just making a mess of my life. I'm not doing anything that I want to be doing. And I was at a job that I wasn't happy with. They were about to shut the doors. I mean, just all these things were happening to me at once. And there's so much there, but
girl, we got time.
Things just kept hitting me. And I mean, I had a business as well. I had my own business that was kind of stemmed out or grew out of this other company I was working for. And they had filed bankruptcy, and I was tied to it somehow. That's a really long story. All the owners went their separate ways. They all filed bankruptcy. So all of this fell on me because I was tied to it because of my ex-husband. because we had been married. We were no longer married, but I was not released from that, and I didn't know I was still tied to it. Because when you're married, you sign everything your husband signs.
Of course.
And so I was the only one left that they could come after. So I, a single mom with a business and a child and pregnant, was sued for millions of dollars.
Sarah.
Me and my business. So like that happened. I was trying to figure out what I was gonna do because I'm like, I don't know if I can afford another baby.
This is all happening while you're pregnant.
This is all happening while I'm pregnant.
Jesus.
Yeah. And I thought, okay, I don't really know what to do with all this. And I was in school at the same time, and I'm like, okay, well, I clearly have to drop out of school now, which was devastating because I was headed somewhere. So I thought, so all these other things just kept happening, and I'm like, I feel like I'm just being beat down. Every time I get up, I'm slapped down again. And so it got to a point where I'm like, you know what, and then I, find out that the baby daddy was engaged, which we had broke up, so it was fine, but he got engaged, and I'm like, oh my God, what is happening?
Like, I understand why you were suicidal. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because all of these things racked up,
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, and I just carried so much shame because I think the depression, I never understood how to handle it, which, you should, another episode on that for sure. But I didn't know how to handle it. So the only thing I could do was be like, I just don't know what to do with this. So I guess I just have to feel it and just isolate myself, stay indoors. Then all my friends decided they were going to be Christians at once, literally at once. And I'm like, don't be talking to me about Jesus. No. I got this problem. I got this. Like, there is no such thing. Like, I was so angry. I'm not kidding. All of them. And they're like, hey, come to my church. Hey, come to my church. Hey, let's go to the study. And I'm like, no, I'm not.
Oh, wow.
And finally, it was funny because I'm like, you know what? Maybe I should. Maybe I should just go, just a little shut up, and I can go on about my life. And I just kept getting more and more depressed, and I started visualizing what I would do to end my life. I started seeing pictures in my head. And so I go to church, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this pastor is talking to me. And it scared me because I'm like, oh my God, how does he know what I'm going through? Jeez, does anybody else know? And it was scary. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go back because I'm kind of curious about this. So then he's like, the people that have hurt you, what you should do for them is just pray. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to pray they get hit by a bus. I'm not even kidding. The pastor said that. He's like, don't pray they get hit by a bus or anything.
He was all up in your Kool-Aid.
Oh my God! I was like, how does he know that? Is there like some sort of thing on my head that he's reading my thoughts? It scared me. I was like, I gotta go. I got up and left. I'm like, I gotta get out of here. I don't know what's happening. So I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty pregnant at this point. I'm like, if I'm gonna find a church, maybe I should find one closer to home. So I start looking for a church, and I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't see any place that I want to go. I was hurt in the church growing up, so I have no interest. Yeah, right? And so finally one day I was sitting there on my couch, and I'm like, you know what? I'm done. I'm just going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to end my life before this child is born because I don't want this baby to grow up in a broken home and have nowhere to go and have nobody. And I'm so sick of fighting these battles. Like, I was just done.
What did you decide Haley was going to do?
She was going to be with her dad. And so a couple days later, like, I was planning everything. I'm like, okay, I've got my means. I know what I'm going to do. I know what room. I know where I'm going to go. I had everything in there ready. I had my notepad. I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm like, okay, Haley's at her dad's. Check. I've got okay, check. Like, I'm mentally going through okay, yeah, okay, tonight's the night. And so I write on my notepad, I'm like, I don't even remember what I said. It was very basic, something like, I'm sorry, I love you, love everybody, bye. And just set it down, and I'm crying, but I was also kind of zombie-like. And I start walking into the hallway to go to the room, and I hit the ground. Like, it was like somebody knocked me over, took my feet right out from under me. And I was like, what the hell? Seriously? And I'm talking to God, okay? Like, don't believe in him, but I'm talking to him. And I said that. I was like, what the hell? I'm ready. I'm like, I'm so
But
ready.
I'm not. Thank you.
Yeah. And he was like, nothing. I heard nothing at first. And I'm like, seriously? I couldn't get up. I could not move from my spot. I tried to get up, could not move. And people are going to think this is crazy, but it's part of my story, so I'm going to tell it. I just remember sitting there and I'm like looking up, crying, going, are you serious right now? Like, what is the deal? If you don't take my life, I'm going to. And I'm like, I'm sick of this. And I'm just like pouring everything out to him. And finally I just laid down and I felt a presence. I felt hands, arms around me. And all I heard was, you're safe. I've got you. You're not done. And I was like, why? And I looked around. I know. But I looked around and I'm like, who's here? Who's in my house? And it just like freaked me out because I'm like, what's going on? But he knew what I needed. He knew that I needed that physical touch and that I needed to hear him. And I think I heard him in my heart. I don't think I heard him audibly, but it felt like it was audible. And I was like, okay, fine, you know, and I just laid there and I just cried and I said, you know what, fine, I give my life to you because I don't know what to do with it and I'm done and I just don't know where I'm supposed to go from here. And so things from that moment were different. Finally, I just felt this wave of peace just come over me and I'm like, okay, I can do this. I don't know what I'm doing, but I can do it. So I go back to my couch and I get the paper and I wad it up and throw it away. And I was like, all right, Lord, now what? I believe you. I believe you now. I felt you. I get it. What do you have for me? What do you want me to do? And since then, my life has just completely turned around and I've just devoted my entire life to him. And I'm like, I have no time for dating. I have no time for boys. I have no time for anything but what he has for me.
Right.
I ended up quitting my 6-figure job to make nothing in ministry because you don't work in ministry for the money for sure. But he told me to go work for my church and I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I'm a brand new Christian. Why would they hire me? And I can't make any money there, so I don't know how I'm supposed to survive. I've got 2 kids, you know, about to have 2 kids. And he sent me there anyway. He's like, you're going to go to that church and you're going to work at that church. And I said, okay, sure, whatever you want me to do. And so that's what I did. And things just changed. And I thought too, they're not going to want a single mom that's pregnant with somebody's baby that she's not married to. Why would, you know, they're going to judge me. Not at all. They're like, hey, come on in here. We love you. I'm like, okay, this is probably the place for me then. But it was the church that I was like, I will never go there because it's like that church that hurt me growing up. And so, yeah, so that's everything from that point on was just different. I still had struggles. I still had obstacles. Enemy still tried to attack. But what's really funny is, so my husband now, friends of ours tried to set us up for a couple of years. And I'm like, no, I am not messing this up. Like, this is amazing. I am not doing that. And so it's funny because God was like, yeah, you are. This is your person. So we ended up getting 2 years later, okay, mind you, our friends tried to set us up. We had mutual friends, tried to set us up. And we both kept saying, no, we're good. And before that, I had made a list. This is what I would like to have. You know, God, you said I could ask you for anything. So this is what I want exactly. Must love God, must have a motorcycle, must never have kids.
Did you really say must have a motorcycle?
Oh yeah, I did. That's on my list. Never have kids, never have been married, which was ridiculous because at this point I'm like 36, somewhere around there, something like that. It's ridiculous. Like, who hasn't been married by that point? Most people, most men. And so I had all these requests and I was like, Lord, if you have this person, that'd be awesome. If not, that's cool too. So our friends kept trying to set us up and we're like, no. 2 years later, we're at the same church and they kept saying, hey, you know, he's looking for a church, you know, maybe you could take him. And I'm like, well, I hope he finds a church, but I'm not taking him. So he shows up, we get baptized the same night. I was the first one. They did a video of my testimony. And so he saw the whole testimony. So he saw everything straight off the bat. He was the last one baptized. We meet in the lobby of the church, and I was like, hey, I knew who he was because I stalked him on Facebook for a while. And I was like, hey, what are you doing here? He's like, I just got baptized. So I'm like, me too. He's like, yeah, I know, I saw. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. And it was kind of funny because I'm like, wow, God, that's really funny. Wow. Look at you. We're saying no, no, no. And you're like, you know what? That's fine. But here. Here.
He's going to circumvent what you think.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, okay, you know best. Okay.
I created him for you. We're going to find a way to cross paths.
Yeah. So that was April of the year that we got married. This is 2013. And then we got married in November. So
oh, wow.
Baptized April, first date May, engaged July, got the ring in August because he moved quick without the ring. November. Yeah, baby, we got pregnant in February. The next.
Oh my God!
It was like boom, boom, boom. Let's do this if we're gonna do this.
And so for the people that are watching, I'm talking to Sarah Tolbert. With first of all, she's the director, one of the directors of Marriage Boot Camp. If you don't know what Marriage Boot Camp is, you haven't been watching my show. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. No, but it is a powerful experience. That it's a 4-day boot camp, which is not only just for married couples, it's for singles as well. We have marriage boot camp comes in the daytime. At night we have life enrichment, which all of the married couples also come to that as well, and it's amazing. But Sarah is in the process of telling us her story, and if you just tuned in, she just told us how she met her husband, right? And so let me ask this question. So just so people know, has everything been peaches and roses and flowers and rainbows and sunshine since you got married?
Of course, isn't that how it's supposed to be? No. Oh my gosh, the first 2 years. Woo. Yeah, the first 2 years are rough. And actually, that's what I tell my premarital couples that I work with. I'm like, you think this is going to be all daisies and ponies and rainbows? And it's a challenge. So if you're not prepared for it, you need to prepare for it. Because, I mean, that's part of why I do what I do, because I'm like, it was not everything I thought it was going to be. The honeymoon ended like at the honeymoon, you know, so because real life happened, and then we get pregnant immediately, and then it was like, oh, we really have to adjust our lives. And not only that, he didn't have kids before, so he comes into this automatic family, so he's having to adjust. I'm having to adjust to not being the man of the house, you know, the head of the household. And so that was a challenge because we like butted heads a lot, because I'm like, no, this was my house and you came in here, and he's like, well, I'm married now too, and you know, this is my life now too. And I'm like, you know what, you're right, yeah. And so through my healing process and then becoming involved in the boot camp and going through that process, it was like, oh wow, I learned a lot. I didn't realize how independent I was and how I wanted to maintain that independence, but you can't. I mean, when you get married with someone, that's two different people like becoming one, and you are now having different roles. Like my role changed. So it's like, you know, when I was married the first time, my role was this. Then I got divorced, and now my role is this, and now it's like this. And so I had to adjust to that, and he did too. And so it took us a good couple of years to get that done. And yeah.
So did you guys seek counseling? Did you?
Well, sort of. I mean, I did, but he just kind of was like, I'm not really interested. And I'm like, okay. But here's the thing with him. Like, he's so secure, and I didn't know how to handle that because that's not what I was used to. I wasn't used to a secure man. And I'm like, you just don't care about me. And he's like, I'm just secure. And here I am. I don't know what your problem is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what that's like. Right. He's just strong, and he doesn't sweat the small stuff. And he just, whatever healing process he had to go through, because he's, like I said, he's 10 years older than me. So he went through his own journey before I even happened. So that was one thing that I learned. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I need counseling.
Right.
And he was open to it, but I'm like, you know what, let me see what I can find out about me first. And then we'll come back around and see if we need to go together. And so that's kind of when I started doing my education too, because I'm like, I want to be in psychology. Like, I want to be a counselor or something. But I'm like, can I do that since I'm not healed? Like, I'm still in my journey.
Right.
But I started doing that, so that helped a lot. Just my undergrad program helped a ton. I was shocked.
Yes.
And then my coaching certification, that helped so much. My counselor helped.
Oh my God.
Me realizing he's a decent human being. He is like the best. And I learned from him just by watching him and how I respond. He responds to that. And so if I'm being nasty, he's going to be nasty right back.
Reactive, right?
Yeah. So I learned all that too. So, and then boot camp, you know, learned through that. I mean, that's, gosh,
So speaking
it just all brought it together. Yeah.
How did you get there?
Oh my gosh. So I guess, well, let's see. Okay. My timing is so horrible. Okay. I want to say about 6 years ago is when I met Jim and Elizabeth, because they go to my church. And so I'd heard about this and I'd never seen the show. Sorry guys if you're watching. I didn't know anything about it.
Wait, you had never seen the show? Oh my God. I was such a big fan of the show. I even told my ex-husband, I said, we got to go on there. We've got to meet them.
Yes.
Like, you know, years and years ago. So it's just crazy how things come around. But anyway.
They were like, hey, so I had talked to David Bishop when they were still working together, and he's like, yeah, you know, this is what we do, and so, you know, can you guys put something in your flyer? Because we would always promote it through our flyer through the church. And so I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I kind of want to go see what this is all about. So saw what it was all about. And then Jim had invited me after that to serve with them, and he's like, hey, you know, what do you think about being a director? And I'm like, what exactly is that? Like, what does that mean? Because again, back then I had only led classes at church and spoken to groups, you know, but it was very small, very small scale compared to this. And I'm like, I don't know, that makes me nervous, because, you know, I can be in the groups and I can do my part in that and attend and everything, but this is different. This is like teaching them and talking to them. I don't know.
So did you go through it before you became the director? So what was your experience?
It was awesome. It was awesome. But mine was different because it was a launch of the dating boot camp, so it was a little different, but it was still the same stuff. So a lot came up too. So yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. But it was interesting too, because I'm like, you know what? This just affirms everything that I've been learning and everything that I've gone through. And so being here with these other coaches and going through this with them to like a, what's it called? Like a trial or whatever. It's like a, what do they call it? There's a term for it. Anyway, I'll think of it. But anyway, that was interesting, because I'm like, this is everything I've been learning. This is everything that I've been studying. Why has this never made sense before? But the way the boot camp is laid out, it just clicks so fast.
Let me not get technical, because I'll go into all kinds of psychology stuff. But I felt the same way when I came, you know, because Loyo saw me speaking at an event and that Elizabeth was at. And so I was just like, I just want a picture, you know, I just want a picture of Elizabeth, you know, because I honestly love her, because I watch the show tremendously. And so she was just like, you're a coach, right? You're a relationship coach. And I was like, yeah. And she said, well, you know, go ahead and come on and see how everything is, and then you can refer clients to there. And I was just like, well, of course I know what the impact is for other people, so of course I'll go. And I tried to schedule it in November, and something happened, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to go in January. I'm going to this one in January.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I wasn't expecting anything, Sarah.
Oh, yeah.
I was just coming because, okay, I want to see what happens for my clients, so that I know I can tell them a little short snippets of, you know, the experience. But
it will rock your world. I mean, even now, even though I'm a director now, I still will kind of sit in the corner and I'll go through it again, different things, just because I'm like, I still get so much out of this. And I'm over there in a puddle, like, oh my God.
And so,
but it's so healing.
It's so healing, because anybody that knows me personally knew that I was a daddy's girl, right? And so my father, I always told this story because I know some people might have not have heard it, and others, when they hear it, they pay attention to other parts of it. But my father passed away 4 days before my birthday. I had just talked to him on Sunday, and he was like, "Okay, baby girl, what do you want for your birthday?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know, just whatever." And when we got off the phone, it was fine. And then at 2 o'clock in the morning, I get a phone call 2 days later that Roger's dead.
Oh.
What do you mean? What are you talking about? And this is my stepsister
gosh.
calling me on my stepmom's phone. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I just talked to him. He wasn't sick. What are you talking about? I'm so sorry, Candace. Roger's dead. And so all I remember is hanging up the phone. Colin was I don't know, about almost a year by then. And he's laying in the bed with me, and I'm screaming to my husband, like, "Come get Colin! Oh my God!" And so, fast forward, we buried him on my birthday.
Oh.
So that's a whole nother thing that was tied to my birthday, right? And so, him dying 4 days before is tie enough, but to bury him on my birthday, it's totally different. And so, anyways, by the time I went through the boot camp, it had been a year since he had passed away. And no, it had been 2 years since he had passed away, but I was carrying it. You couldn't talk about fathers. You couldn't say Father's Day. You couldn't tell me his birthday on September 12th. You could not Christmas was different. Thanksgiving was different. Like, everything just was different for me. And I knew I was carrying it. And so, but I'm functioning, I got things to do, I got to help people do this. I'm a teacher, all those kind of things. And so when I got to the mother-father drill, which if you ever have gone through boot camp, then you know what I'm talking about. If you have never gone through boot camp, you need to go through it. But when you get to the mother-father drill, and the father is first, and I told my partner, I said, I don't know if I'm going to make it through this. And she said, it's okay. And so I sat there and we were going through it, and I don't want to tell too much about it, but at the end of all of this, the father passes away and the mother passes away. And so when you get to this point, I'm screaming and crying, and I run out of the room. And so I love Brenton. Brenton is another director. He was my coach at the time. He came out there, and Loyo came out there, and she's one of the other directors. She's a boot camp sergeant.
Yes, she is.
If you ever meet her, you'll know what I mean. And so they came out there, and they were like, I need you to come back in. They listen to me talk about it for a second. Can you breathe now? Are you okay? Okay, we need you to finish this drill. And I'm like, what do you mean I gotta finish the drill? Yeah. No, we need you to finish this drill. And so, anyways, long story short, Sarah, I was never the same. Yeah. Ever. When I say all of that baggage was off of me, I can literally talk about my father now and still with a happy face, and he did this and he was great at this, and without boo-hoo crying.
It's like a deliverance.
Oh my God.
I mean, it is.
It is such a healing, He'll always be in my heart. He's always going to be a piece of me. If you talk about fathers, I'm going to light up and I'm going to tell you the story. And of course, in every blue moon, still, there's Father's Day, every blue moon, I'm like, okay, let's deal with it. And then, of course, being a coach at the boot camp, it relives some things. But for the most part, 99% of the time, I'm just like, my daddy's good.
That's awesome.
So I tell that story because I really need people to know that the impact of marriage and life enrichment boot camp is amazing. And your coaches are there for you. Yes. And they are not going anywhere. They're going to stay in your face, and they're going to be there, and they're going to cry when you cry. They're going to hug you when you need a hug. They're going to be tough on you when you need to be tough. Right. But it's all for your healing. And
and some people come in there like, I have nothing that's wrong. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing wrong. I'm just here to, better myself. Mm-hmm. But that's where I found out I had a daddy issue. I had no idea.
Wait a minute, Sarah.
I knew I did, but I didn't understand the impact of that and why my life went the way that it did. Because I'm like, oh, it makes sense now. Like, I felt so invisible and isolated. It's actually a small part of my story that I tell at boot camp too. because I'm like, this had to do with everything that happened in my life. It was because I didn't feel seen. And by learning that was the problem, it led me to these relationships. And now in the relationship I'm in, my marriage, I don't need to be seen.
Right.
I know who sees me,
Right.
and that's all I need. And of course, bonus, my husband sees me. So, but I don't know that I would have known that otherwise. That was just part of my journey. So yeah, you may go thinking that there's nothing to figure out, but watch out.
Hello.
You don't know.
I think about it. I don't think I've ever seen your husband come to the boot camp.
He will never show his face there. I joke because I'm like, you know what, y'all, I really do have a husband, I swear. Nobody's ever seen him. Well, Jim and Elizabeth have met him, and Lorena, but like, yeah, he has no interest. I'm the extrovert of the family. He's like, I'm happy right here with my motorcycle buddies or on the couch. I'm like, that's fine. You know what? You do you, and I'm going to go out and be loud me.
Right. So do you find yourself using some of the tools at home?
Oh, totally. I totally do. You know what we use the most? Well, what I use the most is the mirroring. Because he's so funny. Like, he'll say something, and I completely misunderstand it, and I'm like, hold on. You said da-da-da-da. He goes, yeah. I'm like, but how is that possible? Because it doesn't make sense for what I'm asking you. Like, I'm not getting the answer that I need. And he just doesn't follow through with, like, helping me understand. So I'm like, okay, what I heard you say was this. And he's like, no. I'm like, well, then what the hell are you saying? I don't know what you're saying. And then I'll go another, okay, so now what I heard you say was this. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, why didn't you say that in the first place?
Right.
So yes, I use the tools and I teach him. He just doesn't know I'm teaching him. He might now if he's watching, but
right.
He don't know.
And so I guess my other question would be, what is it like with a blended family?
Oh, it was really hard at first. Because, you know, Haley was older, and so since she was older, it's really hard for him to come in and be dad, you know, but Emma was much smaller, so it was easier. So he was different with Haley than he was with Emma, so that was hard for me. I understand it, but in my heart, it didn't make it better.
Right.
And so that continued for a little bit, and so it was really, really hard. And then we had a child, and I was scared because I thought, oh no, is his family and him, are they going to treat this child different than they treat these children? It never changed. Like, you would never guess that these two children had other dads.
Right.
Like, he's a dad to them, and his family is, like, they've adopted those children, so.
So are the other two involved with him, though? Like, do they have a working relationship?
They do.
How did that work? I mean, how did you guys navigate that? You know, because a lot of times that can be such a big thing.
Yeah, and at first, you know, Haley was like 5, so she just adored him. Like, she spent time with him. She even told him how to propose to me. Like, she gave him a Batman ring. I was like, here's what you do. You get on your knee, and he's like this. So, like, they had this whole thing. She taught him how to propose. For real.
So sweet.
Yeah, so they had that kind of relationship. You know, of course, she got older, and so as she got older and started hitting teenage years, that dynamic changed a little. So that was hard for me to see, but I also understood it. But he and Emma, like, they were tight from the start, too. I mean, they were just, like, that was another dad. And so, and she was 2, so that she didn't know any different. But that's continued. But now, you know, the older she gets, we're going through some challenges, but fortunately we're on the same page. So, because at first it was like not really on the same page. And I'm like, you know what? I've raised a couple of children. So I kind of know what we're looking at here. So I need you to kind of be on board. And he does. And he straightens me out too, because sometimes I can be too harsh. And he's like, you just need to back off a little. And I'm like, says who? But I do. I do, because I respect him. But so yeah, I mean, it worked out fine, and everybody gets along. And
but what about the other dads? Like, how does that dynamic work, or are they involved?
That was hard at first because we were all trying to find our place. And, you know, for them, it's like, well, this guy's coming in here and he's going to, you know, help raise these kids. I don't think so. But it was like, you know, this is how it is. And he's going to be here forever. Like, I have no intention of divorcing this man. So we're going to have to figure out a way to work it out. And so both of them were great. We all have a really good relationship now. It was very tense for quite a while there for both of them too. But I mean, now it's great. We have a great relationship. I think they are both like, okay, we know that he's a good man. And because imagine,
it takes a while.
Yeah, like the stranger comes in and all of a sudden they're going to be my kid's step parent after 6 months.
And I can imagine, because there's, you know, I've dealt with clients that that dynamic is terrible and it's horrible. Yes. And they're like, one person, she married somebody that was an alcoholic and a drunk. 2 kids with another person, you know, outside of that. And that other person, now, mind you, he still loved her. So yeah, anything happens to her or those kids, he was ready to fight. And so they fought all the time. And so I can imagine, like, in somebody's mind thinking, well, what if it's like that? And what if it's like this? And what if this is really not a good man? And what if they're going to abuse my kid? And, you know, there's so much going on out there. And so I feel like that you're so blessed now to
yeah, because it very easily could have gone. I mean, it started to go that direction. And it was like, you know what? This is what it is. He's in my life forever. He loves these children. He's good to them. I know him well, even though it seems like that's such a short time. But
they didn't know the backstory either.
They didn't know the backstory. So it's like, technically, I've kind of known him a lot longer than this. But it was like, you have to trust me. Right. You just have to trust me. That's all you can do. And so that's kind of what it boiled down to. And then as more time went by and as things got better and better, they were like, you know what? Okay, I guess this is going to be fine. You know, and things come up, but for the most part, I'm like, I want to keep this to where whatever happens with these children is between me and their parents. And then if, you know, whatever Tom needed to do coming in, if it had to do with our household, then he would step in there. But if it's outside that household or a medical concern or school or whatever, that would be between me and the parent. And I had to keep it separate. It was probably harder on me than anyone because like I had to keep all that separate. And I had to know when to bring him in, when to bring this one in, when to bring that one in. And it's so complicated. And it just was one of those things that I just had to figure out.
And you got your rhythm down now.
And I do, yeah, totally. And they're great. They're both super supportive of their daughters. And of course, Tom is super supportive. Like, they're spoiled. They're really spoiled. And I'm like, okay, now it's me against all 3 of them because they're spoiling these children. And I'm like, I am trying to raise them to be decent people. And they are. They're decent people, but...
So you threw me all the way. I'm trying to raise them decent people. You sound like me in college because his grandparents spoil him rotten. And I'm like, you can't allow him to do this because then when he comes to my house, he thinks he can do it and he can't.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we need to do a parenting episode.
I know, right?
I have so much to say on this.
But so as a coach, what would you say your niche is?
Okay, so it took me a while to figure this out because I thought it was single parenting and then I thought it was premarital. It's all of those things. But what I'm finding I work with the most is couples and blended families.
Yes, and I was about to say that, Sarah.
Did you know that already?
No, I didn't though. I didn't. I was like, that's blended family. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, it is. It's so funny. And it's really funny because every time I meet with a new couple, they're like telling me, you know, here's kind of what's going on. And I'm like, I've been through that.
Right.
Like everything that is brought to me, I'm like, I have been through that. And then I'm like, gosh, I've been through a lot of stuff. But it helps me to better help them. So yeah, I think I would say that's probably my niche.
And so I asked you that question because, guys, I want to make sure that, every coach is different, every counselor is different. And so you have to find the right person that's your fit, right?
Yes.
And so I asked her what her niche was because she might specialize in something that I don't specialize in, right? My thing is not blended families. That's not my thing.
Right.
I'm a relationship and sex coach, and all my credentials if you've watched the show, right? So, but hers is blended family and coming from 2 points of view because she wasn't a Christian all her life, so she has got the faith-based stuff going on, and she got all the natural stuff going on. So you've heard all of these stories today, right? So, Sarah, how can they reach you if they would like to become a client of yours?
Yes, so my website is sarahTcoaching.com, and my email address is sarah@sarahTcoaching.com. That's Sarah with an H. And you can just go in there and just look around. I have a blog. I do a podcast with another fellow coach of mine.
Hey, Heidi!
Yeah, hey, Heidi. So it has all the ways that you can contact me. It tells you a little bit more about me. I think I even have some stuff about the boot camp on there. But yeah, that's how you can find me.
And this has been so amazing, Sarah. You have got to come back.
I would be honored.
What I'm trying to do is have 3 coaches on the table at the same time.
Awesome.
And when we get together, it's a little crazy.
We might need 2 hours.
Yes, absolutely. But what I'm trying to do is have you guys come on individually first, and then special guests to bring back, because that would be amazing. Because I don't think we'd stop talking, to be quite honest. Because we don't stop talking at the boot camp. And no, it's time for a drill. Let's go.
That's true. Where y'all at? Get in here.
Right. But guys, as always, you can reach me on all platforms, Candyology CS. On YouTube, it's Candyology Radio, Candy J. So I am so excited to have Q. If you guys have ever watched Mash the Gas, he is amazing. He'll be on my show on June 6th. He's also going to be at 1 p.m. So, and we are going to be talking about the impact of a father to celebrate, of course, Father's Day. June is Father's Month. So, the impact of a father. And both of our his father was a pastor. My mother was a pastor, but my father was a minister as well. So we have some crazy stories to tell about that relationship. So
that'd be nice.
And I think we also need to talk when you come back. We need to talk about church hurt too.
Yes.
See, we have too many topics to talk about, Sarah. So you gotta come back.
Absolutely.
But guys, you've been watching Candyology Radio, where we talk about love, sex, and relationships. We'll see you next time, and I'm wishing you love-filled days and orgasmic nights. Have a great day.
Bye. Oh my God. No.
Okay, come on now. Come on. I need you to do it.
What did you do? Yeah.
Because they won't talk.
Gosh, yeah.
Or they'll say 2 sentences, and that's it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And I'm sitting there like,